In this video, I'm going to show you first how to create a stencil from a glue gun, and then a few ways to create gorgeous layered collage papers with your one-of-a-kind stencil. Hello, my name is Catherine Rains. I'm a mixed media collage artist, and welcome to Tune In Tuesday, where I share art demos to expand your mixed media toolbox. If you see value in my art demos, I would deeply appreciate a thumbs up, and if you would subscribe to my channel below. Links for all the supplies to make glue gun stencils are down below under the word more. And while you're there, you might also want to check out my free 5-lesson online workshop, Collage Kickstart, where I teach you how to use all the collage papers taught during Tune In Tuesday to make fabulous collages the very first try. So let's get into creating glue gun stencils and the collage papers that you can make with them. So today we're going to be making these glue gun stencils. Now these have a tint to them because I've already used them with paint. I'm going to make one from scratch with you and then show you a couple different ways to use them to make very intriguing layered collage papers. But first, let's start with what supplies you need. Now obviously you need a glue gun, and I've also got some extra glue pellets to load this with because mine's almost empty here. You can use your glue gun stencils on almost any kind of paper. I pulled out some nice copy paper. You can use drawing paper, sketch paper. My other favorite paper to do this with is Joggles rice paper. I've been told this isn't a true rice paper, but it's what Joggles sells. It has a really nice texture to it. I've also pulled out some collage papers that I consider duds. They're papers that I probably will not use in my work as they are. I'm going to play around with layering my collage stencils on top of these to see if I can turn them into something. I've also got a Brayer, a water spritzer, and my acrylic paints. These are Nova acrylic paints, but you can use any acrylic paint. And as you probably know from previous demos, I stick to 3 primaries with all of my collage papers, only because it makes it easier to make all the papers basically talk to each other, so they're harmonious. So my 3 colors are Hansa Yellow Light, Phthalo Blue Green Shade, and Quinacridone Magenta, or Quin Magenta. However, I tend to use these 2 for most of my demos because these are just easier to pull all the papers together. If I'm using just yellow and blue, the cool family along with some black and white to create some variation. And one of the most important supplies is what surface you are actually going to make your stencils on. I found this cutting board to be one of the best ways to do it. What I'm going to do is just start playing around with the design. I kind of have one in mind. I was thinking of triangles. I just have to squeeze this out. It takes me a little bit of time just to kind of get the rhythm of this so I can figure out what my design is, but I'm thinking interlocking triangles. Now, one of the most important things here is to have each one of your little designs, whatever you're going to do here, you want them to basically interlock or touch other edges. So for instance, this little triangle, if I made it all by itself, if you can see this, it only attaches itself to one little edge here, which is actually would work. But the more edges that you can get to touch each other, the stronger your stencil will be and the easier it will be to use. So what I'm going to do is fill up pretty much this entire cutting board using this really simple design, and then let it dry, which won't take very much time, and I'll show you how to use it. So what I just realized in doing this, that this might be a bit easier if I do this in long lines, because I might be able to have a little more control over being a little more straight. So I'm just going down long lines and down long lines just to speed this up for myself, because it does take a little bit of patience to put the glue stick down, because you have to be very kind of precise as you're gluing it down. And it's easy to get kind of wobbly lines. I certainly have very wobbly lines, but I'd like to get them as sort of straight as possible. And this way I can let the cutting board actually be part of the guide, because I can rest my gun right on the cutting board. So I think I've got this whole board filled out. So I'm just going to let this dry, and then I will easily pull this design up. At least that's what I hope will happen. This didn't take long to dry, and really all you're looking for is, to the touch, does it feel kind of coolish, or at least room temperature? There's no heat to this. So maybe 10-15 minutes tops. Now off camera, I did reinforce some of these lines, made them a little thicker, because they work a little better in terms of pulling it off if the lines are thicker. So you may not be able to see it, but some of the lines are just a little bit reinforced, just to make it a little easier to pull off my board, as well as to use as a stencil. So I'm just very gingerly pulling this off from the edge, hoping for the best as I do this. So it is coming off fairly easily. Already there's a little part here that's separated, but that's okay. So I'm just going to try from both ends. So I am taking my time doing this. I'm just very carefully pulling the piece up, but it's easily coming off the mat. But because some of my lines, they're kind of delicate, they're thin, I just don't want to rip them. So I'm just taking my time, making this a meditative process. Okay, it's finally released. Actually, you can see it better if I have it here. Now, what was interesting is this half of my stencil, I had thicker lines, I do believe, and it came off really well. This looked like it had thicker lines, but it shredded a little bit. So I have two choices here. I can go back and reinforce these lines, which I could do. However, because this part of the stencil looks really good, I think I'm just going to cut it off right here. There's a couple lines that I'm going to reinforce, but for the most part, this half of the stencil looks really good. So just for future reference, I just got to remember to make thicker lines like this. They come off easier, and they're not as fragile. So just take this off. So we'll get rid of this part. So this part looks really good. I'm going to reinforce a couple of the corners there. Okay, this one is repaired enough. It doesn't need to be perfect. And you will probably find that you've got little strings of glue kind of hanging on. You can pull those off if you want. I'm going to get as many as I can off of here, but it's not really going to affect the end result of the artwork. This one that I made a long time ago still has little strings hanging off, and it was just fine when I actually used it in my artwork. So I'm going to show you several ways that you can use this stencil to make collage papers. For the first one, I have just taken a piece of plain old copy paper and just put a light coat of acrylic paint on it as a base layer. Then I'm going to take my stencil, put it on top, and the question is what I want to put through the holes. So I think I'm going to put a little bit darker color, since this is a pretty light color here. Just mix up a tiny bit of blue, a little bit of yellow there. And I'm going to mix it right with my little sponge here on the fly. And I am going to just sponge through the stencil itself. So I'm just lightly dabbing. The paint I have on here is full strength Nova paint. It is not watered down at all. And I like that it has a little bit of variety in the color. So it's not just all blue. It has a little bit of the green and teal also. That's interesting. So I'm just going to repeat the pattern. My favorite way of mixing color actually is to mix it like this, where I'm not actually kind of mixing it first. I'm mixing it on the fly. Oh, that's neat. I like that. We'll just complete the whole page this way. So you see, I don't really need the whole stencil, although that would have made it faster maybe, because I could just put one stencil down and done the sponging with one stencil. But it's easy enough just to take the good part of my stencil and move it around. Now, I could leave this just like it is, but if you know me, I love adding water to things. So just intensify it a tiny bit, see if I can move that paint a little bit. Yeah, and I like that even more because it kind of smears it a little bit. Yeah, so it looks like it's less intentional. I'm going to do the same thing, but take one of my, what I call a dud collage paper, something that didn't turn out for me. Put a stencil on top of it. We're going to do the same thing, just a different stencil. Maybe a light blue might be interesting with that, so I'll add some blue to that. Mix that together. Ooh, that's a pretty color. So it's a little bit of a lighter color than that's on here. Let's see what we get. Oh, now that's interesting. Now I'm going to take the same stencil but turn it over, which has a flat side to it. And I can actually take a brayer and brayer the color on to this flat surface of the underside of that same stencil that I was using before with the sponge. So I need a pretty heavy coat of that paint on the stencil. Flip it back over. So now that paint side that is flat can be pressed into an old collage paper. Just press it really hard. And now when I pull it up, I actually don't like the print. But that just means it needs another layer, which I'll come back and do in a little bit. I'm going to try this one more time and try to revive this little piece of paper. But I think my color is too dark. See what happens. And I like it. It's very cool. So I'm going to keep working with this same stencil. It's on the reverse side again. Roll some paint on it. But this time, I am going to put this down on a piece of clean white Joggles rice paper. Push this down into it. Oh, that's beautiful. And let's just smear this around a little bit. One of the wonderful things about rice paper is that it's very absorbent with water. Not only will the water help to move that paint around on the rice paper, but this paper actually basically has two sides. So there is a back side to this that's also going to show the design. So I'm going to let this dry just a tiny bit, not totally dry, but just kind of take in that water. And then I'm actually going to paint on the back of it. But meanwhile, we'll try something else. I'm going to be using the same stencil. You can tell I have a favorite here. Just roll some more paint on here. But I also want to get some more variety in the colors themselves, so it's not all uniform. You know, so a little bit of dark blue in there. Yeah. And then again, I'm going to put this on a piece of rice paper, push it down into it. Oh, that is so pretty. Now, it's very similar to the other one, except that I've got some more variety in the colors that I've put down. So I'm just going to add a bunch of water to it so these colors will blend a little more on the rice paper. So it's almost like painting into and filling in the holes. So I think I'm going to keep this paper exactly the way it is. This is a finished piece for me. So I want to do one more thing with this one. So this was the first one I tried like this. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this upside down. This is kind of risky here. And I'm also going to wet this paper, wet the paint down. So it's almost like a wash that I'm going to be putting over this. And I am painting the back side of this. Kind of peeking to see what happens. Because theoretically, this is going to come through to the other side, and it'll look almost like a stained glass. I really wanted to show on both sides. Look at that. You see it's much thinner. It's really thick paint here, and it's not here, so you can see. And let's see what we got. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Love that. Now, this is my scratch piece of paper that I've been doing all my rolling on. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun to take one of my stencils and make an impression on it, see if I can actually use this scratch paper as well. So I turned the stencil over on its flat sides. There's always a flat side and a kind of curved side. Put a lot of paint on it and just pressed it down like I did before, and just made a full grid out of it. And I'm pretty much in love with the effect of this. So even scratch paper is fair game to make collage paper out of. And again, between each one of these pressing of the stencil, I am rolling new paint on top of it. So each time I press the stencil, it has fresh paint on it. I like it. And this one from before, I'm not crazy about. I have really nothing to lose here. I'm going to mix up some lighter paint right there and do my sponging right through this. See if I can revive or get something out of this one piece. Okay, here comes the reveal. Did I get something? Yeah, actually, I think that makes it more interesting. Yeah, I'm liking it. After I turned the camera off, I had so much extra paint that I decided to keep going, which I almost always do because I don't want to waste any paint. So I kept layering using these 3 stencils. I emphasized my new one, but my other 2 are wonderful as well. So I kept taking the papers I had, especially the ones I didn't like that much, and kept adding layers to them. So for instance, this one, I didn't like when I showed it on camera to you, but when I added a couple more layers, I actually like this one a lot. And this one would be very effective next to something like this. Now, this may not look like that much, but there's a lot of subtle pattern here. It's what I would call a quiet paper. And when you put a quiet paper next to something that is busier, these two would go together quite well. So I just had a blast layering and basically using up all of my paint. I mean, look at that. So gorgeous. I am in love with this. Now, this one I did show you on camera, and I actually didn't like it when I was making it. But when I look at it now, it's like, wow, I love this. So sometimes you just can't tell until you give it a little bit of space whether it's something that you would actually use or not. And if I decide I wasn't going to use it, I would just put another layer on it until I had something I did like. Like, I think that is just so interesting. In fact, I could say that I truly love all of these now. So I encourage you to not give up on papers that don't look so-called good, because by adding another layer or two, they may just turn into your favorite papers, which is very often the case for me. So I hope you have fun with this technique. And to be honest, I want to go back to these stencils and make another, I don't know, 3 or 4 dozen, because these are just so scrumptious to make, to look at, and to use in a future collage. To learn many more collage making techniques, check out the links that are about to appear right here. And be sure to join my free 5-lesson online workshop, Collage Kickstart. The link to sign up is under the word more below. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would be deeply grateful if you would. And I'll see you here next week for another Tune In Tuesday.